The time is 8:45 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news edited by Lakshman Fonseca and read by Tilani Piris. The headlines. The President says a bill on gender equality and women's empowerment to be submitted to Parliament soon. Electric motorboats will be introduced from next year for fishermen. No power cuts during the festive season and the exam period. And on international news, the South African President faces threat of impeachment over Farm Gate. And on sports news, Sri Lanka is in Pool C for Netball World Cup. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says a bill on gender equality and women's empowerment will be submitted to Parliament soon. Addressing Parliament today, the President said that he has instructed the Women Parliamentarians Caucus to prepare the bill. The President emphasized that women's representation should be increased not only in the Parliament but also in other sectors. He added that both public and private sector should focus their attention in this regard. The President pointed out that the representation of women representation in the current Parliament is only 5.3%. The President further said an independent commission under the name of the National Women's Commission to give leadership and make recommendations to Parliament will be implemented to intervene in matters relating to gender equality and women empowerment. Meanwhile, a number of activities were held in Parliament today under the leadership of the Women Parliamentarians Caucus in support of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Women parliamentarians and women staff officers were dressed in orange to support the program. The Public Utilities Commission says power supply will not be interrupted during exam days and the coming festive season. Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, says that the public should not have any doubt about it. He added that the Ceylon Electricity Board has not requested an electricity tariff revision so far, and there is no requirement for a tariff revision at the moment. It was reported yesterday that although the electricity tariff has been increased in the past, it is not sufficient to cover the loss of the CEB. Therefore, the request to increase the electricity bill has received cabinet approval. The Fisheries Minister Douglas Devananda says steps will be taken to introduce electric motor boats for fishermen from next year. The minister mentioned the move will be implemented to address the fuel issue. He made these remarks at the meeting of Ministerial Consultative Committee on Fisheries held recently in Parliament. The minister also pointed out that he is planning to introduce electric motor boats that can travel 100 kilometers using batteries. The cost is only 86 rupees per day to fishermen engaged in small fishing, he added. The minister also mentioned that attention has also been paid for providing electricity generation facilities through solar panels and wind turbines for boats using kerosene and diesel. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Sri Lanka aims to attract nearly 1.5 million tourists in 2023, the Minister of Tourism, Harin Fernando, said, adding that their main focus lies for the year 2024. Speaking at a press conference held in Colombo today, Fernando was hopeful that Sri Lanka's tourism would grow over the next few months, with several airlines scheduled to fly into the island. Fernando noted, however, that their real objective is to achieve roughly 3 million tourist visits in 2024, with the implementation of several new services, including ferries and railways operating to Sri Lanka. The Minister of Education says that tomorrow will be a holiday for all government and government-approved private schools in the country. As the second term of schools drew to an end today, the third term is scheduled to commence on Monday. Meanwhile, the Grade 5 scholarship examination will be held on the 18th of this month, and the GC Advanced Level examination is scheduled to be held from January 23rd to February 17th next year. Meanwhile, the Education Minister, Susay Premajanta, said in Parliament today that he regretted to hear that some teachers are facing economic issues to buy saris to wear to schools. He said that the ministry is preparing a mechanism to provide some relief to the teachers who have economic hardships to buy saris. The minister made this remark in response to a remark made by parliamentarian Rohini Kaviratne on the sari issue today. That ends local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The State Minister Lasantha Alagiyavanna says that the testing of those driving under the influence of narcotics and other abusive substances will commence from next year. Accordingly, 5,000 units of the required equipment for this operation have already been handed over to the police. He further added that such tests are now crucial given the alarming increase in the use of drugs. The minister pointed out nearly 400 deaths happen in a year as a result of drug-related accidents. That was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Watch Life is brought to you by
Celebrate Christmas and New Year with lots of CIB discounts. Valuable gifts with bank discounts till 31st of December. Come to CIB today.
And on Watch Light tonight, the water supply in several parts of Colombo will be interrupted for 15 hours tomorrow due to essential maintenance work related to the Ambatale Energy Improvement Project. The National Water Supply and Drainage Board said accordingly the water supply in Colombo 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 will be interrupted from 10 p.m. tomorrow till 1 p.m. on Saturday. That came to you in Watch Light.
Celebrate Christmas and New Year with lots of CIB discounts. Valuable gifts with bank discounts till 31st of December. Come to CIB today.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
We give you the strength to rise higher and higher.
Never step back, but always march forward.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
World News headlines first. The South African president faces threat of impeachment over Farmgate. The former US President Bill Clinton tests positive for COVID-19. The UN General Assembly President says goal to end AIDS by 2030 badly off track. The South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is facing a possible impeachment threat over the Farmgate scandal. The president has been accused of covering up a $4 million theft from his farm in 2020, including kidnapping and bribing the burglars into silence. A 3-volume report from an independent panel has found that Mr. Ramaphosa abused his position and may have broken an anti-corruption law. He has denied wrongdoing and said the money was from selling buffalo. The panel's findings have been handed to Parliament, which is set to examine them and decide whether or not to launch impeachment proceedings next week. The former US President Bill Clinton on Wednesday said that he has tested positive for COVID-19. 76-year-old Clinton tweeted that he is experiencing mild symptoms but is doing fine overall while keeping himself busy at home. Vaccinated and boosted, he urged everyone to do the same, especially as we move into the winter months. The UN General Assembly President Sabah Karushi called for action as the goal to end AIDS by 2030 is badly off track. In a message for World AIDS Day, which falls today, Karushi said the goal is to end AIDS by 2030 is badly off track as inequalities, discrimination and disregard for human rights are happening progress. He said that people must address these challenges that have kept HIV/AIDS as a global health crisis for more than 40 years. There is a science-based path to ending AIDS, but regrettably, it is not available to all, he said. If the international community acts, 3.6 million new HIV infections and 1.7 million AIDS-related deaths will be prevented this decade, he said. Back to the world news headlines. The South African president faces threat of impeachment over Farmgate. The former US President Bill Clinton tests positive for COVID-19. The UN General Assembly President says goal to end AIDS by 2030 badly off track. That ends World News.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
Amidst all challenges, we will rally around you and advance.
In the face of hardships, let's stand strong together.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Moving on with development news, tourism officials yesterday said that Sri Lanka has received more than $100,000 income from the arrival of cruise ship Main Skiff 5. The ship carrying more than 2,500 passengers with 900 crew was berthed at the Hambantota International Port recently. Most of the passengers on board the ship were from European countries and they travelled to a number of tourist destinations at proximity including Yala National Park after the ship was docked at the Hambantota port. The cruiser's next destination is Penang, Malaysia. That came to you in development news. Coming up, sports news. Sri Lanka has been drawn in Pool C for the Netball World Cup 2023, which will be held in Cape Town, South Africa. Group C is headed by world number 4 Jamaica, hosts, and world number 5 South Africa, and Wales, who are ranked 9th in the world. Sri Lanka, who retained the Asian Championship in September 2022, are currently ranked 16th, which is their highest ever position. Pool A comprises of Australia, Tonga, Zimbabwe, and Fiji. Pool B has England, Malawi, Scotland, and Barbados, while Pool D includes the defending world champions New Zealand, Uganda, Trinidad and Tobago, and Singapore. The World Cup will take place from 28 July to 6th August 2023. That ends sports news.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest, an interest rate of 22% in 4 months. NSB, the safest place for your money.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Litro Gas Lanka Limited says more than 100,000 domestic gas cylinders will be released to the market from today. According to the company's chairman, Mudita Pires, a limited number of LP gas cylinders were released to the market recently due to the delays in the arrival of shipments. However, the LP gas consignments ordered by the company are now arriving in the country. He mentioned further assuring that the customers will be able to make required purchases during the festive season without any shortages. That came to you in business news.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest, an interest rate of 22% in 4 months. NSB, the safest place for your money.
This is economic news. Sri Lanka aims to restore growth to pre-crisis levels in 2026, Finance State Minister Shehan Semasinga said today, with policymakers intent on meeting a December deadline to present proposals that might help unlock an International Monetary Fund bailout. Sri Lanka is suffering its worst financial turmoil since independence from Britain in 1948 as a result of economic mismanagement as well as the COVID-19 pandemic that wiped out the Indian Ocean Islands' key tourism industry. The minister said in an interview at the Reuters Next conference that we have a target. 2026 is the year we think we could go back to growth and look at a pre-crisis level. That came to you in economic news. Finally, the weather report. The Met Department says there is a high possibility for afternoon thunder showers over most parts of the island. From tomorrow, showers or thunder showers will occur in the northern and eastern provinces. Showers or thunder showers will occur elsewhere during the afternoon or night. Fairly heavy showers, about 75 millimeters, are likely at some places in the western, Sabaragamu and central provinces and in the Gaul and Matra districts. That was the weather report. And now to end this news broadcast, the main points once again. The President says a bill on gender equality and women's empowerment to be submitted to Parliament soon. Electric motorboats will be introduced from next year for fishermen. No power cuts during the festive season and the exam period. And on international news, a South African president faces threat of impeachment over Farm Gate. And on sports news, Sri Lanka is in Pool C for Netball World Cup. That ends this news broadcast.